Film analysis using psychoanalysis. We will do today and perhaps next Wednesday also. For the purpose of learning film analysis using psychoanalysis, we will take the example of a Sherlock Holmes episode created by Grenada Productions. I believe Grenada Productions has created the best TV serial on Sherlock Holmes. And I would recommend everyone to go through all the episodes of Grenada, and after this learning session, pick up any episode and apply what we have learned here to do film analysis yourself. So I have chosen for today a Sherlock Holmes story and episode titled A Scandal in Bohemia. So I hope everyone has gone through and seen this episode. If you have not seen it, see it before you watch the video ahead. Today's discussion presupposes that you have seen this episode on YouTube or wherever it's available. So let us start with what is film analysis and how do we do it using psychoanalysis. So film analysis, as the word suggests, it is analysis of a film. Film analysis, as the word suggests, is analysis of a film. Now, analysis of a film is a very important part of any film studies course. You do a film studies course from any good university. In that course, film analysis is a very important part of the whole program. There are various ways of doing film analysis. Someone can do film analysis based on focus on acting. Someone can do analysis with a focus on music. Someone can do analysis with a focus on cinematography. Someone can do an analysis with a focus on story or the script. And you can do analysis of a film as a standalone analysis, or you can compare two films and do a comparative analysis, or you can take a longitudinal view and do analysis of any director or actor over a decade, or take many directors and actors over a decade. Based upon what is the purpose of film analysis, in different ways you can do film analysis. Today we'll focus upon taking one film and doing its film analysis. And by film, we mean not only a feature film, it includes documentary, videos, episodes of TV serials. It can even include a play. So we are using the word film as a rough equivalent of any independent audiovisual creation. Now there are various ways of analyzing a movie, a film, or episode of a TV serial or a play. You can do analysis using any of these technical parameters which go into filmmaking, or you can do film analysis using an ideology. So there is something which is called a Marxist film analysis or a feminist film analysis or a critical race theory film analysis. You can choose any conceptual framework to do film analysis, and one way to do it is to use psychoanalysis. And psychoanalysis, when you do film analysis using psychoanalysis, knowledge of psychoanalysis, you call it psychoanalytic film analysis. So this is one way to do film analysis, not the only way to do film analysis. And what we will focus on today is this psychoanalytic film analysis. And what does this do? It tries to find the hidden psychoanalytic story the unconscious psychoanalytic story, which is hidden below the story that we are seeing on the screen. What you see on the screen is like a manifest dream, and from it's like a free association or a manifest dream, and from there we have to find out what is the psychoanalytic unconscious story. And this exercise is psychoanalytic film analysis. And by film, of course, we include film, video, teleserial, even plays. So this is broadly what film analysis is and psychoanalytic film analysis is. How do you do it? If you want to do psychoanalytic film analysis, how do you do it? Various ways of doing psychoanalytic film analysis. One, you can take up the film and from there try to analyze the director, the writer, or the script writer of the film. Just as you can take up a book and after reading the book you can start psychoanalyzing the author. You can take up a painting and from there start psychoanalyzing the painter. You can take up a poetry and from there start psychoanalyzing a poet. Similarly, you can take up a film and from there start psychoanalyzing the director or the script writer, where you consider the film almost as though it was a book or any work of art. One way to do psychoanalytic film analysis. Second method is to analyze the film as an independent text, meaning we don't go into the creators, we just look at the creation, the film, as an independent entity, completely independent of the creators. So we leave apart all the creators and their unconscious minds. We just focus on the film as though it was an independent entity, as though it was some real place in society where these events were happening. And then we analyze the film, we analyze the events, and we analyze the characters. This is second method of doing film analysis, analyzing the film as an independent text. Third method, we can just analyze using psychoanalysis some characters in the film. So in our situation, we can just focus on Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson, or Irina Adler and just do psychoanalysis of these characters. That can be third way of doing psychoanalysis of the film. Fourth way would be to, which is I have not written here, but fourth way can be to see the whole film as an entity where all the characters in that film, or in our case the Sherlock Holmes episode, all the characters there are parts of the unconscious mind of the creator. In this question, in this case, it will be the writer Arthur Conan Doyle. That is fourth way of analyzing the movie from a psychoanalytic standpoint. It's called the Kleinian method of psychoanalysis. Not Kleinian method, but most Kleinians use that method. Very popular. I have not written here. I should have written here. The fourth way would be to see the entire episode or the film such that all the characters are parts of the unconscious mind of the creator. And the events also have a resemblance to unconscious events happening in the mind of the creator. We will do that part of analysis also as we go along. Fourth way of doing psychoanalysis of the film. And the fifth way is to do collage of all of the above. Take something from each method and do a collage approach in film analysis. A mix and match of everything. That's a collage approach of doing a psychoanalytic film analysis. Very importantly, whatever method you use of the five, 1, 2, 3, the fourth one I said of all characters being the parts, some parts of unconscious mind of the creator, and fifth one, collage of all the above. Whatever method you choose, you can do psychoanalytic film analysis in two ways. One, you use only one school of psychoanalysis, Freudian, Jungian, Kleinian, or any other school. So a single school film analysis. And using a single school, you can go into any of the 5 methods. Or you can use multiplicity of the schools and do film analysis, which is what we are going to do today and next class. That we will do of this episode a Freudian analysis, a Jungian analysis, a Kleinian analysis, and in short, I have put up cohesion analysis also. One small disclaimer, a film in reality is a product of many minds, and there is also an aspect of market preference. So it is not a work of pure art. There is market influence and influence of multiple minds in creation of a film. We will oversimplify this reality to say that Arthur Conan Doyle is the sole creator of what we see in the episode. So with that, and in any film analysis, we do this simplification because it's very difficult to factor in market preference or all those who have contributed in. And it's not a very wrong disclaimer to make. It's not a make or break thing in analysis. The analysis that we do, even if we give this disclaimer, is a reasonably accurate analysis. So with this, let us enter into psychoanalytic film analysis. And before we go there, just have a look at what psychoanalysis is. If we look at our knowledge of reality, we can divide reality into 3 parts: the world of matter and force and energy, the world of life, and the world of mind, or rather that part of reality which deals only with matter, energy, and force, that part of reality which deals with life, and that part of reality which deals with mind. In this area of the first one, physics is the mother science. Second zone of reality, life zone, biology becomes the mother science. And in the mind zone of reality, psychology or psychoanalysis becomes the mother science. So psychoanalysis is the mother science of the mind, at least according to psychoanalysis. And it has 2 applications. Psychoanalysis has clinical application for therapy and non-clinical application as a mother science to all humanities and social sciences. That because it is the mother science in the zone of mind, it can be used and applied in all areas of humanities and social sciences, including film analysis. In reality, in all leading universities and intellectual circles, use of psychoanalysis for film analysis and literary criticism is very popular. And schools of psychoanalysis which are used are these ones that I have listed here: Freudian, Jungian, Kleinian, cohesion, Bionian, Lacanian, Winnicottian, Nevenlu school. But in humanities and social sciences, what is most pervasively used is Freudian, Jungian, Kleinian, and Lacanian. What we will do is Freudian, Jungian, Kleinian, and cohesion, what I have put here in bold. Melzer says a very good thing: if it is not autobiographical enough, it is not psychoanalytic enough. You can never have any creative entity which does not betray or communicate in a hidden way the unconscious mind of the creator. This is true of all humanities, social sciences, and arts. So the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes was written by Arthur Conan Doyle. And Arthur Conan Doyle wrote it in 2 parts. First, you had stories called The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, and towards the end of it, Sherlock Holmes dies while killing the biggest criminal in Europe. Both of them died together and the book came to an end. But people would not accept death of Sherlock Holmes. They were so fond of the stories that public pressure forced Arthur Conan Doyle to restart the stories of Sherlock Holmes, and that new volume or the new chronology came up under the title The Return of Sherlock Holmes. And in all the stories of Sherlock Holmes, the place is 222 Baker Street, which is now a historical place in London. And the core characters are Sherlock Holmes, his friend Dr. Watson. They live together, and for considerable length of Sherlock Holmes stories, they both live together as bachelors, and it's only later that Dr. Watson gets married. But Sherlock Holmes never gets married, is never in a relationship with any woman. So we have an extreme version of the professor of My Fair Lady. I forget his name. I forget the name of the professor in My Fair Lady. But we have a extreme version when it comes to women in Sherlock Holmes here. Mrs. Hudson, the housekeeper, and maybe we don't know who is the lady. If Mrs. Hudson is the lady of the house also, owner also, but at least she keeps the house for Sherlock Holmes. The core characters are Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. Mrs. Hudson is more like a character actor on the margins. Then we have Inspector Lestrade of the Scotland Yard, who is shown as somebody stupid, a bumbo fool, also a character actor. Then, after many stories of Sherlock Holmes, this character is brought in, Professor Moriarty, who is like the evil part, evil equivalent of Sherlock Holmes, equally intelligent, equally strong, but on the side of crime. It's almost like if Sherlock Holmes is the omnipotent good object, Professor Moriarty is the omnipotent bad object. And then there are story characters. In each story, there are characters who also come in based upon the story. And then towards the later part of Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson's wife makes an appearance in the few stories, but on the margins. And then we have Sherlock Holmes' brother, Mycroft, elder brother. He also makes an appearance in a few stories. But these are all on the margins. The core characters are Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson, and Mrs. Hudson. They appear in every story. So we take up today's episode, Scandal in Bohemia, and we start with the themes. First, the name itself, Scandal in Bohemia. First is, what is Bohemia? From a psychoanalytic point, what does Bohemia stand for? Second, what is the scandal? One scandal one Bohemia in the story we are told is a province in Germany of which the king has hired Sherlock Holmes on an assignment. So Bohemia is that place whose king has hired Sherlock Holmes. That is the obvious part of the story which we are told in the story, that Bohemia is a place. But we want to know in the unconscious mind, what does it mean? Second, what is the scandal? In the story we are told, so the manifest meaning of the word Bohemia given in the story is it is a province in Germany. The manifest meaning of the word scandal is the scandal between the king and Irina Adler is what is referred to in the story. we want to find out what is the psychoanalytic meaning of this candle. Third, we want to find out what do the characters represent, if at all, from a psychoanalytic standpoint. Fourth, we want to study what is the psychoanalytic pathology of each character, and we can take up only the main characters of the episode. And lastly and most importantly, if we look at the entire story of the episode, what is the hidden psychoanalytic story under the surface in the unconscious? So these will be the themes of our psychoanalytic discussion. Let us start one by one. First, let us start with applying psychoanalysis to the characters. First, Sherlock Holmes. What do we see? We are told in the story he uses drugs when he has no work to intensely deploy his mind. What does it mean from a psychoanalytic standpoint? It means if he has nowhere to focus upon, he starts getting in touch with those parts of himself which are so difficult to bear that he has to run away from them by using drugs. So there are parts in his unconscious mind so difficult that he has to constantly run away from them, either into work or into drugs. If there is no work, then into drugs. And this is where we find many people who are into addiction of different types. This is the dynamic at work. They are escaping from very difficult things in the unconscious mind by running away from them by using drugs or having the addiction. I'm not saying this is the only reason for addiction. There are many reasons for addiction, but this is one of them. Second, you also see self-destruction here. Anger turns against oneself. You don't mind harming yourself. He is great in logical deductions, but he is disastrous in the area of emotions. He's almost like a logic machine. And that tells us what is at work is isolation of affect, a complete isolation of affect. He is almost like a logic machine. And why would somebody use the defense of isolation of affect? Because in the childhood, he would have experienced very intense emotional pain and created a template. Feelings bring pain, so just keep them away. And use your logical part to think out things. Secondly, he is a very good observer. Thirdly, he is known for observations and attention to details and for deciphering motives of people and their plans. Why would somebody develop this skill? Obviously, you can develop these skills only if you are talented, no doubt about it. But that apart, why would you turn your talents into these areas? Obviously, because the child is terrified of being hurt and therefore develops extraordinary capability to find out from people and the environment in a very subtle way when the attack is going to come, how to save oneself. Children who fear constant attacks develop extraordinary capability to know unconsciously, non-verbally, if something will upset somebody or something will please somebody, or if an attack is in the air just about to come. And these children keep constantly deciphering motives of the people and their plans in order to be prepared for attacks, in order to save themselves. And this also tells us there is a very strong anal component in the characteristic, because attention to details is an anal feature. He has chosen, rather created a special profession for himself. He says so in the episode. I have created my profession. There is nobody like me who is a consulting detective. This tells us about narcissism. You don't want to compete with anybody because you can lose. Although in reality, Holmes may not lose, he's so good, but there is always a fear. So you choose your profession where you are alone. You don't have to interact with people and you don't have to compete with people. You are on top by definition. And you avoid any defeat. You maintain your fragile omnipotence. And these are narcissistic traits, coupled with the fact that Holmes does not have any intense relationships with the world outside, with people outside, except Watson. He does not have, there is a relationship vacuum in his life, which also is a narcissistic characteristic. The profession is to catch criminals. Very interesting. Why would he choose this profession? Something in the unconscious makes him go this way. And there are two parts of it. One is ethics, that crime has to be fought. And this talks about a strong superego he has inherited from the father. And he is always after the criminals. So either the father committed some psychological crime, or somebody who was criminal assaulted the father, or the mother was not reliable enough and committed some ethical psychological crimes.
So how can we say that the father, about the mother from this thing?
He is going after the criminals, so which means he does not want crime in society. So he is trying to create a perfect world. That is a narcissistic trait. But the way he's trying to do it, there are many ways of creating a perfect world. What he has chosen is to catch criminals, bring them to justice. As though in childhood there was something that was inflicted upon him and he could not bring that person to justice. And somebody had committed a psychological or an ethical crime. So in all probability, we will see it later, but it appears that he thought of somebody, either the father or the mother, as not being good enough, as being criminal, as somebody unreliable whom you have to constantly analyze and look for details. And that habit has continued, and that has become his profession. It has become an obsession to keep looking at details, motives of people, observations, and ultimately use it to catch criminals. As though this was developed in childhood, to keep an eye, analyze, save oneself, and catch, if possible, either the mother or the father. In more probability is the mother. He takes on the most bizarre cases because he can think out in most bizarre ways which most people cannot. So he has this unique ability of thinking in a way that most people cannot. Putting oneself in the shoes of the most bizarre of criminals. And that tells us of a very strong ego, which can allow him to go into near psychotic states without any deficiency of well-being, and come back with most creative and bizarre of solutions. Extraordinary creativity, extraordinary ego strength, and therefore extraordinary femininity and extraordinary masculinity. Masculinity being far more than femininity. And very importantly, in this entire series of Sherlock Holmes, usually there is no mention of parents or siblings except in one or two stories. One story is the Greek interpreter. In that, his elder brother Mycroft is a character. Otherwise, you see there is no mention of parents, and that is true of all the three characters in all the Sherlock Holmes stories. We have no mention of parents of Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson, or Mrs. Hudson. And this is a attack of omission, annihilation by absolute omission. And this tells us something about Arthur Conan Doyle, which we will see later. That Arthur Conan Doyle obviously has a lot of anger towards the parents, and what he does unconsciously is annihilation by absolute omission. Some more elements about the character of Sherlock Holmes. He never takes credit, gives it to the Scotland Yard. From a Kleinian point of view, we would say he has a fear of owning up a good object, because the good object will be lost and therefore it will give him a lot of pain. So better not to have good object than to suffer the pain of loss. In early life, therefore, he has suffered a very severe and deep loss, mostly the loss of the mother or loss of the father or both. He gives the good object to somebody else to keep, the Scotland Yard. In real life, you can see people, suppose they go out on a vacation and they ask you to take care of their car. Even after they come back for many days, they don't take back their car. And the unconscious dynamic would be they fear owning up a good object. Second, he remains in the background even after preventing the crisis on the European scale in the story, as though he believes, I don't deserve to be good enough in public. So deep inside there is a belief, I am not good enough, reaction formation to which is, I am omnipotent. But I am not good enough comes up in this, that I don't deserve to get credit. And I am omnipotent comes up in all the tasks that he does. Both are at work. And this is true of most narcissistic personalities. Affect, envy, inferiority, depression, guilt, shame, all of them are completely unconscious. No expression of affect, no expression of envy, inferiority completely unconscious. Depression is almost like what we would call dysthymia, not a full depression. Guilt for a lot of anger would be there. Early life shame, which would have contributed to narcissism, the cohesion shame would be there, completely unconscious. Very importantly, he lives alone without a woman in his life. Obviously, he has trouble with women. Then where would trouble with a woman start but with the mother? He lives very unnatural life without a woman. And obviously, trouble with a woman starts with trouble with the mother. So there is some trouble with the mother, and what we see from other characteristics is there is a pre-Oedipal loss of the mother, there is a Oedipal non-resolution, and there is a betrayal by the mother in many ways, because of which he is constantly alert and constantly on lookout if or not the mother will abandon or do something unethical. So he lives alone without a woman in his life.